guys because I can do that.
Why did we count down?
Yeah, I don't know why he counted down. I was like, just start because I can do it.
I'm gonna do it if I want to. All right.
Okay.
I like a countdown.
All right. Everybody
I'm
ready?
recording.
Okay. 3, 2.
Oh, you're allowed to do a countdown, but I can't do a countdown.
I'm doing.
Hey
a
guys,
countdown.
I'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Liquid Dota podcast number 4.
5.
5? 5. Wow, how time moves. The first of the TI recaps and previews for everything that is the International 2015. Sorry about the delay. We've had a lot going on in everybody's personal lives, and time zones are hard. Right, Scants?
Yeah.
Yeah. I told him to be ready, I thought, an hour ago, but no, it was right now. So, joining me today on the podcast, I have Liquid Dota writer Gaijin Dash, who we're just going to refer to as Dash from all this.
Yeah, let's just go
He's
with Dash.
Yeah, he's the one sporting the sexy Australian accent.
That's me.
We have rejoining us from 1337 magazine and just all around really smart general stats man, Scant.
Oh
Or we say
yeah. Hello. I am all around really smart person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from Dota, the TI staff, and just, again, an all-around really smart guy is Knoxville, who's going to be joining us for a lot of this. He's a good friend of the show. And
Hello.
Yeah. All right. So we got all the introductions out of the way. The International is coming up in about 2 weeks from the time of this recording. There are 14 teams already in. They are EG, Secret, LGD, Vici, Empire, IG, Virtus.pro, Cloud9, Fnatic, eHome, Newbie, Navi, Complexity, and MVP Hot 6, with the last 4 I mentioned being the qualified teams. Then there will be a play-in of 4 other teams playing in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's MVP Phoenix, 4 Anchors,
You're wrong.
NAR V2,
It's
And
Vega, Team Archon,
Vega.
CDIC, and MVP Phoenix.
Yep.
So
Okay,
just not 4 anchors.
Just not 4 Anchors. Sorry, Trixie, you're left out of this one. That's all I know. I just know 4 Anchors is the Trixie team. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of the teams on this podcast right now. Just giving an overall general view, people who need to catch up, or if you're new to Dota 2, getting into it with this Grand International, which is a great time to get into Dota. Little bit of background on the teams and things like that. So hopefully the teams we're going to get to this podcast will be Vici, Virtus.pro, Empire, Newbie, Evil Geniuses, and Fnatic. So we're going to start at the top of that list with Vici Gaming. Last year they came number 2 at the International. A little bit of roster changes and figuring their lives out. They seem to be doing really well. One of the biggest things I mentioned was their roster change. They kicked their carry Black, who is now on Mouse Sports. They are now all speaking Chinese, and the results have shown. So, I'm going to start with Dash. What are your thoughts on Vici Gaming, and how are they looking going into the International?
I really like Vici Gaming this year. I mean, they've had... So, anybody who's read my my preview that I did on Liquid Dota knows that I'm still quite a big fan of Vici Gaming. I think that in the months coming... And, this is just my own personal opinion. I think that in the months coming up to TI, it's very hard to really see how a team's doing because there's too many factors involved in the team's performance. So they've been slumping a little bit lately, but I don't think that that's reflective of them having any implications in how they're going to perform in TI. Again, I think it was the correct move for them to kick Black. If there's anything that I've learned from being in Japan is that language is very, very important, and I can't see a competitive team doing very well without all of the players being kind of on the same team with language. So I think that just having, I guess, that efficiency or having that sort of synergy within the team that they can all speak Chinese is really good. But yeah, I just generally like the team a lot better now. I think that they have a unique kind of mix between discipline and aggression. They're kind of like the Chinese version of Empire as far as I'm concerned. But I have them coming in maybe third at this international. It's kind of the top four, a little bit of a toss-up for me between kind of, well, Secret, I think everybody at this stage is kind of assuming will win, but that still remains to be seen. So my like second through fourth are kind of EG, Vici, and LGD, but that's how I see it.
All right, yeah,
Yeah,
and I just want to apologize now really quickly. Apparently there are 2 dogs outside my apartment, so that's happening. But back on track. Stanton and Knoxville, kind of our 2 numbers guys. How are Vici's chances actually going in statistically, and how do the numbers look for them?
Oh,
Knoxville.
I mean,
start with you.
Scan, take it away. Take it away, Scan. You had.
I mean, so I mean, Ben's gonna be better placed to give you like an exact ELO-based statistical speculation or suggestion, but I can give you a sort of broader approach by the numbers. One thing that's weird about Vici Gaming is that people talk about their slump, and it's not really appreciated that their slump is actually fairly recent. It's not like they've been slumping all year. There's something about human psychology where we like remember stuff based on the most recent part of it or the ending of it. Or
That's so true.
This Vici Gaming team, after TI4, they won I-League, they won ESL 1 New York, they won the Summit 2, they came second at DAC, they won Star Ladder Season 12. Only then did they start falling a bit, and I mean a bit. They came second to Empire Dota 2 Champions League. They came third to EG and Secret at the Summit 3. Second in I-League Season 3 to LGD, who, I mean, people see that as a sign that they're slumping. It's actually LGD are really strong right now, and it's something a lot of Western fans don't realize because there hasn't been like a big Western tournament where LGD's performed extremely well this year, but they're actually extremely powerful right now as a team, and if you watch the Chinese seed, it's clear, it's basically undeniable. And
Yep.
the only 2 really bad tournaments for Vici Gaming have been Mars TV, where actually they were unbeaten in the group stage, and then they lost 2 knockout matches to Empire and Cloud9, and then ESL 1 Frankfurt very recently, which again true, they got totally like annihilated by Evil Geniuses, and I think that particular match is why everyone looks at Vici Gaming and thinks of them as like not a competitor for first place or not as serious a dominant team. And I think that's just a bias. That's just like, well, the most recent tournament we saw them at, they got smashed by one of the main opposition. I don't think that necessarily means that much. I think we should still expect them to be big favorites going to the tournament in terms of like top contenders for fighting for first with EG, with Secret, with LGD, the kind of teams that Dash was describing. And to me, they remind me a lot of DK from last year. And it might actually, I sort of think it might be a good thing for them. It might have been good for DK last year if they had slumped a bit before TI instead of at TI, which they kind of ended up doing and underperforming. I mean, the whole year everyone thought DK is like the best team. They were the best team. And then it's only at TI where they kind of underperformed a bit. And it might, yeah, I think it's quite possible that VG Gaming like get over that barrier now and then come out as a couple of months ago. I think it was almost indisputable that VG were the top team in the world. Now we talk about Secret versus EG, but yeah, there's no reason VG Gaming can't be, come back in a big way.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous that they, as far as the like Westerners are concerned, they've just fallen off the map. Like a team that good doesn't just stop being good immediately. Like even if they're slumping, yeah, again, I think it's kind of like in recent months. But you said that they remind you a lot of DK from last year. Do you mean in like play style or just the like recent results?
Yeah, so the thing that reminds me of DK from last year is that the Vici, which was really dominant for most of this year actually, had this way of like going to a tournament and drafting however they wanted to, doing whatever they wanted, and just destroying people. And that's something that was signature of DK last year. That like nobody knew how to draft against them. They seemed to just be so good at like a team level and at an individual level that they could just do various different things. They didn't have to like develop, this is our playstyle, these are our main heroes. I mean, right now it almost feels like maybe part of their problem is that they haven't found a playstyle. But for most of the year, it was kind of like this team is just on such a different level that they can win doing whatever the hell they want. And the only team that I've ever thought of that way before was 2014 DK.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. They're a strange team in that they seem to just have like from the get go they seem to, well, at least when they're on form, which is probably until recently, they seem to just have a game plan and then they execute it, and when they execute it and it works, it just looks absolutely cutthroat. Like it just looks so, and it doesn't even look close. Like they just absolutely just smash whoever they're playing when it all comes together. But yeah, I guess that does remind me a lot of DK.
One thing that I have heard said recently, that apparently a lot of pro teams where they have internal troubles in the modern Dota game, like say the last year or two, often it involves the 4-position player. And it's an interesting case study when it comes to Vici, because people talk about FY being the best player in the world, but the stats actually back this up. If you look at Vici gaming, FY is like almost the definition of a greedy support. He and Fenrir, they switch around sometimes, so there's games where Fenrir gets more priority than FY, but even when FY is playing the 5, he gets much more than any other 5 ever gets in a game. And so what it means is, because FY is always taking a bigger chunk of farm than like the usual either 4 or 5, depending on which one he's playing is, if their game plans are not working, it's really a problem, right? Because that's farm that the cores need to get to recover.
Yeah.
Whereas in the games where the game plan is working, you see FY with like 500 kills, and you're like, wow, he's amazing. He won the game. So I think he's actually a really important character when it comes to their success. Like, is the fact that he's taking more, working out to do something, or is it actually costing the team?
Yeah, interesting. So do you think that when FY is being greedy, do you think that takes, like, that also has a big impact on Fenrir as well?
I mean, I think Fenrir in many ways is the unsung hero of the team, because it doesn't seem to matter how greedy FY is in a game. It doesn't even matter if Fenrir is, meant to be the 4 this game because of the hero he is. Fenrir like enables FY to be FY, and I'm extremely curious to see, because there was talk last year about Fenrir retiring, and I'm super curious to see if in the future we see FY in a team that's not with Fenrir, because I'm kind of sold on FY being most skilled player in the world, but we haven't yet seen him play when he's not enabled by a support, it's a support partner who's so dedicated to letting him have his game.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like in Vici Gaming a lot of the attention is kind of stolen by Hao and Ice Ice Ice, because they're Hao and Ice Ice Ice. I mean, Hao is about as aggressive as carry gets in the world, and Ice 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 is Ice Ice Ice. But
I'm sorry, Horst is going to say something about that.
Oh, I don't know, man. I feel like Horst has kind of lost his luster of late compared to Hao.
Nah, dude. Everyone else on Navi is just more Devi, so now he's blending into the Divinus. Like, there was that game in the qualifiers where Artstar was the Undying, and they were like inside the enemy base in 4 minutes. Just
yeah, I remember that. Oh man, I want to talk about Navi so much right now. All right, let's keep on track. We gotta talk about Vici.
Okay,
What do you think?
I'm gonna give a couple. Okay, so I think that Secret is number 1, and then I think 2, 3, and 4, and maybe to some extent 5 are very close. But I think it's maybe worth comparing the two teams the team that you're talking about, Vici, versus the team that I kind of think is maybe above Vici in LGD. And there's a couple of like tiny stats that support this. What I'm trying to say. So in the last month, Vici is 1-6, 1 win, 6 losses.
Ouch.
LGD is 9-2. The teams that Vici lost to, though,
It's just a small statistic, he says.
EG lost 0-3 to Vici lost 0-3 to EG, 0-2 to CDEC, 0-1 to Virtus Pro, and they beat Fnatic Malaysia 1-0.
Yep.
And then LGD are 5-2 against CDEC, including their 3-0 win at G League. And 2-0 against Braveheart, so I guess we could remove that from the list. And 2-0 against IG.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's like a very, very, very short, like, the last kind of month. No, not really too much to compare between the two. But going back to what was said earlier, like, Vici on the 7th of February 2015. They got to an ELO rating of 1549, which is like, just pretend it's a very high, like, arbitrary number.
Mm.
They, after that, that was just as they were going into the, that was just after they beat Secret and they were in the grand finals of DAC. Then they kicked black. Then they lost to EG, then they kicked black. I guess the order is irrelevant. And they started feeding quite a bit. They just went inactive for a period of a month. Their performance wasn't so good when they came back. And then they started building it up. And like Scan said, they put together a very, very convincing series of results. And they got back up to that magic number that we were talking about earlier, 1549. They got back there on Saturday, April the 25th. And they stayed above 1500 pretty much for about a month. And to be above 1500 is like a very serious thing. Like, only like 10 teams in the world have ever been above 1500.
Wow.
And yeah, they stayed there for like a full month before their slump began. But since then, their slump has taken them all the way back down to 1200. And it's getting even worse. So there's two questions that this says. First of all, LGD with like a more gradual rise to where they are right now at 14, 15. Is LGD going to continue to rise, or have they kind of reached a skill cap? And if it is a skill cap, is Vici going to be able to bounce back and get into a position where they are like way more consistent at like a similar level to how they were earlier? Or is it going to be at a level very much below what we expect from them?
Okay, so the question that I have is, what do you think about that kind of strange, like dead 1 to 2 months before the international, where there's like not really any big tournaments going on, and there's like people are starting to like move towards boot camping, and maybe like teams are hiding strats, or there's kind of that calm before the storm of the international. Do you think that it's okay to like keep tracking teams in the same way, or giving the same weights to the results in tournaments just before TI?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things to look at is more like comparisons between like specific matchups. Like, there's no way that a team is going to hide strats rather than win a $100,000 tournament, right?
Well, I mean, when there's 15 million on the line.
Yeah, but like, you're one game away from winning 100,000, like one match away. Like, how much is it going to hurt you just revealing one strat?
But another question would be like, what if you don't reveal the strat earlier on and you get knocked out earlier on in the tournament because of that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that at TI, every team is going to be a key arena. So, like, we saw Newbie do pretty horribly, nearly get eliminated last year, and then bubble format their way to success.
Yep.
Like, any team this year also knows that group stage, they're going to have group stage and they're going to have playoffs, and at some stage in the playoffs, like, it's going to be do or die for them. Like, they're going to be against the ropes, and it's going to be a series of increasingly tougher and tougher bosses that they have to defeat if they want to win.
Yep.
I think that's any team, not only for the morale boost that you get out of it, but just the fact that there's whatever, $50,000, $60,000, whatever it is, a nice lump sum. There's no way that you're going to tell me that Vici intentionally lost to Empire in the D2CL finals, or they got knocked out by Empire and Mars TV. Like, or knocked down by Empire and Mars TV. Like, I don't think that's like feasible. I don't think that there's a reality in which that would occur.
So
okay.
I think that there's
I was
nuance
gonna
to
ask
this discussion. I mean, I think there's nuance here, right? Which is like that. Obviously, Vici didn't go to any of these lands without intending to win them, right? They went to ESL, they wanted to win. They went to D2CL, they wanted to win. But there's still a question to be asked about, like, are they putting themselves completely out there? And I don't mean hiding strats. I mean just like, are they doing something to protect themselves from burnout?
Yeah.
A lot of people say that what happened to DK last year is that they went to Seattle early and they scrimmed way too much, and they played Liquid like a million times, and apparently that was like a big part of Liquid feeling confident, right? Is, they had scrimmed DK and beaten them a lot. I feel like Ice, who was actually in that same team, might be aware of this, and he's in Vici Gaming, and he, I don't know, he could have had a conversation with his team and said, look, like, obviously we still want to win the tournaments leading up to TI, but let's not like kill ourselves stressing about them. Let's not like, I don't know, maybe previously they spent like extra hours a day practicing stuff like that, and they're not doing it this time. So there's some nuance there in terms of like explaining possibly why performances could drop a bit, with the team still being strong.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to get at, like, more. Do you think that with TI kind of looming, do teams' mindsets change, and could that, affect different teams' results differently?
I think that the like maybe something to bring us all back to what we were talking about. Vici Gaming, they're a team that can beat anyone when they're performing, when they're firing on all cylinders. But the question is, are they like they're a team that can do that? But is that team that is firing on all cylinders going to be the team that we see at TI? Maybe. I think that, yeah, basically just in terms of like probability, they're going to be a top 4 team, maybe or top 5 team. But I don't know if they're going to be a team that's coming and going to be able to beat all the bosses of EG and of Secrets and etc.
Yeah, yeah. So, good thought on Vici. We'll talk about them more when we get to as we talk about Empire. But next up is Virtus Pro, a team that some people were a little confused by. I think, particularly some more casual fans. I think some more hardcore fans were in the know and kind of ready for it. So we have Virtus Pro, which is Illidan playing carry, God in the mid lane, DK Phobos off lane, Lil in the jungle and in the 4 position support, and their captain FNG drafting for them and playing the 5 position. They're not doing bad recently. FNG and Lil, arguably one of the best non-Chinese support duos out there. Definitely a very big and playmaky duo, but they do tend to play the CIS style Dota. So, what's the big thing you think, Dash, that separates a team like Virtus Pro from a team like Empire or Na'Vi?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, man. I love this team. I actually love watching VP. They're so exciting to watch. And a lot of it is, I guess, VP is kind of the FNG show. Like, he makes so many plays, and he, like, carries that team so hard. But they're kind of like, whereas Empire are, like, this kind of orchestrated, controlled, very scary aggression, VP are just, like, I don't know, on steroids or something. They're just like, sometimes they seem all over the place. Sometimes they execute like in a more calm, controlled fashion, but a lot of the time it just seems to be that signature CIS Dota style that I just absolutely love watching, because it just reminds me of playing on Southeast Asia server, and it's about as crazy as my pubs are. So, but if you look at their wiki, it's like, if you look on like Liquid Wiki, it's just all gold. Like the last, how long is it? Like just this year, like their results have just been fantastic. What do you think?
So,
Noel?
I mean, in the last month, sorry to chip in the last month, VP have got positive win records against Empire, Vega, 4ASC, Mind Sanity, Alliance, Secret, Vici, and they're 2-3 against C9, so that's like close to a dead heat. The only like team that they can't get past their like arch nemesis is EG. They're 0-5 against them.
Yeah. Have you watched their
other than
games
that,
against
they're
C9?
good.
Their series against C9 lately have been really, really, really fun to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see any of them.
Okay, yeah, just to catch everybody up, they got 3rd at Dota Pit League Season 3, 1st at ES Portal Dota 2 League, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Esport Bet Show Match, they got 1st. They got 3rd, 4th at ESL 1 Frankfurt, 1st at Asus Rock Dream League Season 3, and 5th, 6th at the MLG Pro League Join Dota X Games whole thing. I mean, there is a There is a lot recently. You know, in the past couple months, they've definitely done well in the June, July timeframe.
So
What
they've-
is it gonna take for them to transfer that kind of success, which some people may even say is tier 2 success, and turn it into TI tier 1 big money success?
It's a very good question. I guess so going back to the question of like VP or Empire, which one's better?
Oh.
They've got, like Nox said, they've got a positive win ratio against Empire, but are they the more consistent team? Nox, are they more consistent in terms of wins?
Well, it's hard to say because Empire recently have had like their own little mini slump. Like they
They still
I mean,
dominate
it is
Vici.
close. Yeah, that's the thing is TI is not just about individual matchups. Individual matchups mean a huge amount, like at the like very close to the end when you're like, if you know you're a team that's going to end between 5 and 8, then you care about your like your skill against the other teams between 5 and 8. But you know, if you for a team like VP, maybe they're going to try break top 4, but you know, to have a really good win rate against every other team except the top 4 is like very impressive.
Yeah.
It's just down to RNG of who they get matched up against in the format.
Okay, so
I-
going.
I think
I
both
have
like both are pretty consistent. I think both are on a slight slump at the moment, but yeah, both are like performing a very top quality Dota. They all have the skill to be at the top.
Okay, go for it, Scan.
I think that VP are not as good as Empire, and quite simply, I mean, it's going to sound harsh. I think Illidan is not as good as Silent. I think they can match them player for player in every other role. But I mean, it is in a sense it captures the difference you were discussing before. I think the reason that VP are more like CIS on steroids is Illidan. Silent also likes to be aggressive, but Illidan's the guy who like invents crazy new builds to like help him be aggressive and YOLO people, and you'll see lots of games where Illidan kind of like quite spur of the moment decides it's time to buy back, we're going to do something, like not even in the middle of the fights, like I'm dead, something's happening on the map, okay, I'm buying back, we're going to do something right now. Like that's I do feel like he's a bit more impulsive, which is not always a bad thing, but I feel like there's more cases where his being impulsive is bad for his team than where,
Detrimental.
say, Silence being impulsive is bad for his team.
Yeah, it kind of the team just feels more volatile, and as much as I've always quite enjoyed watching Chinese Dota, so I guess like maybe it's my own bias that I like watching controlled, very orchestrated Dota that's very careful and kind of slow. And that doesn't mean that that's the best way to play Dota, but I think that if you're trying to play the long-term game, and you know the international is quite a long tournament, I think it pays off to be the less volatile team and to have more consistent results.
I disagree.
yeah.
I think you need to be a team that's unpredictable, a team that like okay, so there's two ways of thinking about this. Either you're the team that's going to be setting the meta, or you're the team that's going to be
Following
like
the meta.
following the meta. And the meta's always like different to how everyone else is, like how the meta is coming into the tournament. So you either have to be like a crazy volatile team that's able to mix things up, able to change things, play aggressive, play slow, do whatever you need to do. And I think both Empire and VP like are perfectly suited to that. I don't think that there's like cause for concern that's like their ability to play is going to hinder them.
So when you say like unpredictable team, do you mean like TI2 Navi? Or
Yeah,
TI3
like
Navi?
able to draft it like totally diverse, completely different types of drafts, and
Which-
able to execute at like the top perform. Like I think Vici Gaming in 6.83 was like a team like this. They could do almost anything they wanted, and they could win.
Right. So do you think that the volatility of VP will get them deeper in the tournament than Empire?
It could get them further. It also could mean that they're going to exit earlier. Like it's high variance, but I think their means are very similar. But
Okay.
like Scan said, there are certain player matchups which might favor one team over another depending on what the meta is.
Okay. Scan, how do you feel? So you said that a lot of the other players you could match them off. How do you think the supports of VP compare to like Empire supports?
I mean, I think Empire supports are absolutely fantastic. Always want to fly again. Another support player that almost never gets spoken about. Almost never. I mean, you just don't hear panels or casters going like, "Oh my god, always want to fly so great." And it's similar to the Fenrir role. Like what he's doing is usually enabling Aloha Dance, and it makes sense if you know Aloha Dance is a really young guy. I think he's 16 or 17, and his role in the team is very much to like just abuse his own mechanical skill and like confidence. So I mean, there's a reason that Aloha Dance is one of the first guys making the support task popular, right? Because it just suits the way he plays. Like he just goes all in on confidence. I'm gonna make plays. I'm gonna like set things up. I'm gonna do things, and he's great at it. I don't think that in that sense there's anyone comparable in VP because I think both FNG and Lil are actually more controlled than that. Lil's capable of making huge plays, so is FNG, but neither of them are like playing purely on confidence the way I think Aloha Dance is, and the way Always Wanna Fly is enabling him. I guess the overall package, I would say that they're probably about even in terms of their ability to do things. It's weird because different tournaments bring out different things, and I can't remember which tournament. Well, I think was it maybe at ESL in the placement matches where Virtus Pro surprised everyone and like placed seeded first. I felt like there both Lil and FNG were making massive plays. Obviously Empire went to the tournament, but when those two players are both like in their massive playmaking zone, then they're possibly even ahead of the Empire supports. But on balance, Aloha Dance is the guy who makes the plays when it comes to the four of them. That's what I think.
But with Aloha Dance being, man, that name is hard to pronounce in my accent. Damn. Do you
Aloha Dance.
with bloody Aloha Dance? Cheesy's just off to the dunny. So with him being
Don't
so
forget to
young,
pack your thongs.
thongs are flip flops, by the way, for those listening in at home. So with him being so young, do you really think that he can deliver that same confidence, like on the international stage? I guess it's the same kind of question that people ask about EG. Like their main concern at the moment is with Sumail because he's so young.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. I mean, I know we're focusing on Virtus Pro, but just since we're talking about Empire for a bit, there's a lot of people who expect Empire to do badly at TI, and I mean, we're gonna get there, I suppose. But for me, there's a fundamentally different Empire this year to what there was last year. Sure, they've had this like minor slump right now, but they've done really well on lands. That didn't happen last year. Last year they dominated online. They struggled at all the lands, and they've done really well on lands. And they've done really well on lands with Aloha Dance. And to me, it's like, is there really a massive difference if he's gone to all these premier lands and been okay? Is it just like, oh, it's the international now, suddenly I can't handle it? I don't know. I think he'll be fine.
Okay.
But maybe we should just start talking about Empire now anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna jump in here really quick and just introduce Empire, the other major CIS player slash team. Of Silent, Resolution, Yoki, Always Wanna Fly, and
Yoku.
Aloha Dance. Huh?
Yoku. It's pronounced Yoku.
Yoku?
Mm-hmm.
Yoku? I'm American. I pronounce however I want.
Well, don't worry.
Yoku
Every
is
cast in the world says Yoki.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait till we get LD on here. Oh wait, was I supposed to announce that yet? Okay. Teaser. So with Resolution being the captain and the drafter, I mean the big thing with Empire, I think, and kind of what most people think about right now is good CIS Dota, their Twitter guy, and
Oh man,
the
that Twitter guy.
Oh, their Twitter guy.
That
is
Twitter guy
fantastic.
is so good. You know how much stuff we talk that guy about? Oh.
Yeah. And
Actually-
the fact that it seems like every time Empire plays Vici, they destroy them.
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Knoxville and Scants are two stat men. Do you have any insight onto why?
Well, I can tell you that they're 6-3. Empire 6-3 against Vici this patch.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
Now,
so it's not that bad.
Other than that, no comments.
No comment. Why no comment?
I mean,
Yeah.
I could
Yeah, why no comment?
no comment because I mean, so I actually work for Empire, kind of.
Oh, okay.
This is Scans
So
talking,
today,
by the
today
way.
I learned.
Yeah.
This is Scans.
Um,
Scans works for Empire.
You can you can
Well-
work for the team and give your especially if we're like, oh yeah, Empire's so good. Oh my god, they just crush Vici every time they
Are you
play.
gonna
It's just like,
trash him? Yeah, like what's,
Yeah, yeah.
what's going on here?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
Scans
gonna
have-
be biased and say that they like have way
oh,
better,
just
like
bias
they
away.
have a much better analyst than anyone else. You know, they're getting the best preparation you could ever get, and
There it is.
Uh,
Oh,
and the best Twitter guy, as you guys said. And
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, what more could you want? An analyst, a Twitter guy. That's why Empire's doing.
Well,
so
That's
well.
what it
you
is.
need a
Their
guy
Twitter guy
with a
just
really-
gets in their head.
You need a guy with
Uh,
a really cute dog travel with him as well. So I mean, they got that sorted too.
Who
Yeah.
travels with
Yeah.
a really cute dog?
Turbo. Turbo's one of the guys going to be working for Empire at TI.
Yeah, he's doing coverage for them at the tournaments.
Oh, and he's
Um,
bringing his dog.
The whole team
I hope
gets its
so.
own
That's the
coverage?
only reason I'm so excited. Not the only reason, but it's like a big part of my excitement to meet.
What
Turbo
color is
too.
the dog? Because you could totally just get a stencil and like tattoo the or like spray paint the like Empire logo. That'd be wicked.
But I mean, I don't know the answer to that. But so something interesting about Empire, which is actually a worthwhile discussion about most of the top teams right now. I don't know if we have time to discuss all of them, but Yoki was drafting at a stage earlier in the year, and it is resolution usually now. But actually, a lot of the major teams in the international have shifted drafters a couple months back. Like a lot of them. Vici Gaming had FY. They switched to HAL. They've recently tried FY again. There was a massive change in Team Secret when they switched from Puppy to S4. There's Cloud9 changed their drafter from Eternal Envy to Bone 7. It's like a major trend in the professional scene, especially in the tier 1 teams. The only team I can think of that had no change at all is EG, where it's just always been PPD.
Yeah, but that's
So I
PPD.
don't know if anyone has a comment on like what that's about. Like, do you think Resolution's drafting's been better than Yoki's drafting was? Like, it just seems too much of a coincidence that it's happened in so many teams this year.
Yeah, that is weird because that's not a
It-
common trend for
It
teams to
could
be
be
changing
pre.
drafters.
It could be pre TI4. They're just trying out new people, seeing who's got the who's got the brains.
Yeah, maybe
that's-
it's that.
Well, that is what Secret were doing, right? They said they were like, we're gonna try everyone out. I think even Zai drafted for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
Zai
they-
was
once-
drafting for a while.
But they won the first tournament S4 draft, and then he just drafted since then. I mean, why not?
Yeah,
You
and
know,
they
it's
haven't
worked.
lost since.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think that there's another thing is that when like teams who are going to the international, I mean, this year I guess you could have assumed that Secret were going to get an invite. Maybe because they're so focused on TI, like TI is the only thing that matters, that they're willing to just throw away some potential in different tournaments just because the long-term benefit they get at TI is worth maybe having some stupid losses because of different drafters.
Yeah. I mean, do you think there's any chance that any of these teams could change drafters during TI? Do you think, like, is there any historical precedent for that? I
Yeah.
don't actually know if.
Well, maybe not, but I think Secret could. I mean, it's not a team we've spoken about, but
Yeah.
Secret came into this and a big storyline was how they've changed their drafted to S4. Let's say S4 has gets ill while traveling, or the meta shifts in a way and he's not able to like assess it properly. They've got Puppy, they got Kiraki. They're sorted. PPD
Yeah.
is a guy who's shown that whenever he hits a brick wall, he finds a way around. He's able to like get demolished in a draft day 1 and day 2, and then day 3 kick back with like excellent drafts. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The question is, do you think that Empire can do that, Scans? I mean, do you think that they definitely don't have the depth in terms of experience in drafting, like maybe like one or two
okay.
of them?
They don't have the depth of experience in drafting. They have the depth of experience in playing. There's a
In
stat. I don't know if
playing, yeah.
anyone. There's a stat that Nahaz loves about how like I think Silence has like got the most record wins of any player in the professional scene. He's just like I think that's the stats. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but there's something like that. Silence, like he's either got the most number of games or the most number of wins. One of those two, right? And the
There's a
amazing thing
stat
about
I-
Silence.
There's a stats I remember
Okay,
picking up that Silent has like more wins on Gyrocopter than the enemy team had wins combined. Like
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Like
I mean,
is
Silent loves this
bad.
gyrocopter. Like that's like in 6.84, it's basically the only hero he's played. Like honestly, he's played I think 18 gyrocopter games in 6.84, and his next highest played hero is Bloodseeker with 4 games. So that's what he's doing at the moment. CIS Dota does love gyrocopter.
Yeah, they really do like their gyro. So I don't think that VP have the like robustness in drafting selection like Secret do. Like if Secret worst case scenario they could make Kuroki draft, whereas
Yeah.
I guess they've
Look,
kind
let's
of got.
just say they put out easy. Let's be real.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you,
what I'm
are you
saying. Worst
Yeah,
case scenario,
alright, fair enough.
are
True.
you talking about
true, true.
Empire or Virtus Pro? No.
Sorry, it's
Empire.
Empire. Yeah, I mean comparing their choice in drafters. A question that I would ask is how have like all the visa issues hit like these teams, and are teams going to be affected in their mentality because they've been under so much stress to get their visas approved?
So
If
from
I
what
don't
you
I've
think so. The only
from what I've seen, the teams having the hardest time getting visas are not the CIS teams, but in fact the Chinese teams. I don't know if Knoxville. I don't know if anyone else has actual stats on this, but
okay,
Well,
stats
there-
confirmed. That's the
yeah, I just
Sinico-
assume Knoxville has stats for everything. That's how I live my life.
Sinico doesn't have his visa.
Yeah.
And Sema from Vega's missing his. And then I believe that there are some Chinese players that are missing visas. But I think the Chinese will almost all get theirs. I don't like CTY was the big question mark, and he got his.
And the whole of EM got theirs recently, didn't they? A couple of days ago.
Well,
so-
eHome had theirs, was just
It's just CTY.
CTY.
Yeah.
Okay.
and he
Didn't-
got his.
I don't think. I mean, also, I think CIS teams are so used to having visa issues going to America. It's like I don't think this is like a new thing. Like it's gonna like affect their mentality or their attitude. Provided they actually get all their players there, I think they'll be totally fine. And I know Empire haven't had issues with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
suppose.
yeah.
So they're a
The-
mix. The CIS. So
Empire
both
sorted.
VP and Empire are both mix, like mix Russian, Ukrainian, and they have one VP has one player from another region that's close to Ukraine, I think. So would they all be speaking Russian?
Yes. that was-
Probably,
yes.
yeah. I think FNG is actually from Belarus.
Yeah, that's
Is
the
that-
one.
Yeah.
That's the one. It's right next to Ukraine.
But yeah, so one interesting thing about Empire is that they missed ESL one Frankfurt, and that actually happened last year as well. And 2 years in a row, this is the last major event before TI. And I remember last year thinking like, is this going to be what costs Empire? Because even though they'd struggled at LANs, they'd done really well online, and it feels like the big LANs leading into TI are the best indicators we get for how well teams are going to do at TI. And it's also it's a massive LAN, it's an international LAN. You get to play against teams from other regions. So I feel like potentially maybe that's an area in which Empire could have some trouble.
Well-
They also missed the summit, right? They missed the summit 3. They missed ESL. They went to Mars TV.
Well, they missed
and before
Star
that,
at 12 because of a really, really unfortunate group stage. There was that three-way tie: London Conspiracy, Virtus Pro, and Empire. And London Conspiracy went through because of a pretty silly tiebreak system.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they've gone to plenty of big lands. It's just like the very recent biggest ones. They've missed quite a few, and that also did happen to them last year. And I guess it feels like something that maybe could be relevant.
Yeah. So, dealing with big land problems. Our next team, everybody who remembers the schedule for this podcast is giggling. The previous TI winners, TI4 Newbie, which right after became a World of Warcraft team.
They did.
That's
So I
yeah.
hear they all went and played MMOs for like a couple
Yeah.
months.
Was it World of Warcraft? I thought it was.
I don't think it was
World
World
of
of
They played
Warcraft.
various
I just picked a game.
Shit, to be fair, like if I just won TI, I'd probably spend a couple months just like rolling around in my bed of money.
Yeah. And so, obviously, why wouldn't you? So, this team of Rabbit, Moo, June, Banana, and Sansheng, with a lot of players leaving kind of right after the international, and leading up to with King J, Hao, Xiao 8, and ZSMJ all kind of saying, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, since they won TI, it was just Zhao 8 and Hao who left. And Zhao 8 didn't really, like, when he left, there was more to get married and stuff. And then he went, like, he just happened to join Big God, kind of like, for DSC.
Well, because he was going to retire, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was retiring.
He was going to retire.
He was retiring and getting married. His wedding got streamed to like 500,000 Chinese viewers. You know, like it was a big thing.
Cool.
And then as like a celebrity thing, they made Big God for DAC, who happened to come fourth. So
I mean,
they're like, oh yeah.
he also retired before joining Newbie. Like, I mean, so it's my understanding is that, well, from what I've been told, what Marley told me is that Xiao had never actually announced an official retirement, but before joining Newbie and after leaving Newbie, each time he announces that he's like leaving the game for a while, and it gets reported as he said he's retiring.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. It's just that I never know if we can trust the news that once we get it in English. But yeah, so Xiao and Hao did leave Newbie after TI4. That's true, and quite arguably they're the two most important players, you could say. In the TI4 victory.
Absolutely.
Hao left them much later. Hao only left them like after DAC.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're comparing them now to them from TI4, those are the two players that have gone.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I just wanted to point out that like Hao left them not just after. I mean, okay, so they won TI4. Then after that, they went to was it World Esports Champion, WEC? The one you were going to go to, Scott? Was it that one?
Yeah,
and they just struggled to get into fourth place. Then they got crushed in I-League. Then they win WCA, which was like huge prize money. It was like 2 million yen. Yeah, exactly 2 million yen. And then they started like falling apart. They did like third, fourth in NEST, and then they came last place, tied last in DAC. Yeah. And after coming tied last in DAC, that's when Hao's like, okay, cheers boys, I'm going to Vici.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the first round of DSC when MVP Phoenix beat Newbie and people were like, wow, these Koreans, they've suddenly gotten so good. And then Newbie just like turned out to not be good.
How far have you fallen? I mean, the team is now essentially just Tongfu plus June from IG, like last year's Tongfu. Because they've got Mu, Banana, and Sangsheng are all from Tongfu previously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I always feel like Xiao 8 was kind of the glue that held that team together. I think without Xiao 8, they're really, and especially without Hao, now they're kind of just a shadow of their former selves. So the real question is, do they deserve an invite to TI? Do you think they deserved it?
Well, I don't think it's like a question of deserve. I think it's more like, what is Valve's policy on whether they want to invite the previous champion?
Yeah, but if the previous champions...
There's no criteria by which like a statistician can say they deserved it, like they got in based on merit. It's like entirely based on the personal preference of whether Valve did or didn't want to invite the previous champion. Like, we had three sample points, and all three sample points they gave us no information because every team that came back was as a returning champion, like got there on merits as well.
Yeah.
So we had like no information to go on. And it was like basically conjecture of people trying to interpret what Valve wanted or didn't want. I didn't think that Valve would have invited them. Some people did, and in the end they got invited.
But the thing is that...
Yeah, like probably over one of the European teams, Alliance or NIP. So, you know, one champion getting invited means another champion maybe didn't. Like Alliance were, I think, very close to getting invited.
So
and then we saw them at.
And I think they found out that they weren't going to, and then they made that change.
Yeah.
That's when they brought back the Bulldog.
So two questions. Question number one is, when you talk about re-inviting the previous year's champions, should there be some kind of prerequisite for how much of the team from last year needs to be intact? Because a lot of this year's team is not previous year's Newbie. And the second question is, was Valve's decision, even though they're a weaker team, is it better for the International to have the previous champion there, or is it better to just have the best competition that you can have?
I definitely think
Well,
you're going to need the best competition. But in reference to your first question, with the new major system coming up, we're going to have a more solid transfer period, like if you see in European football, with the English Premier League, and where there's only certain times you can trade, and I think there's only so many players or something like that. I really hope this leads to more teams kind of sticking it out and resolving their differences and getting better as a team, instead of just, okay, this guy doesn't work, so let's swap him with somebody else and see what and hopefully he's the magic bullet that fixes everything. But I think there should be some record of, hey, if we're going to invite the previous champion, it has to be 3 out of 5 of the previous players. Otherwise, yeah.
Say
So
again,
that's,
Skate?
yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. Maybe three out of 5 is where to do the cutoff. 2 or 1.
Well,
seems
there also
too
has to
little.
be there has to be some sort of limits on like how the results are, because otherwise any team that wins a TI can get rid of 2 other players, stop playing Dota, play MOBAs for half a year, decide to end their partying and celebrations and be like, okay, let's play some Dota, and
Well,
still be
so
guaranteed
this
a
is-
spot.
Which
But
that will
this is the
actually.
trick.
This kind of leads me into my next question with regards to newbie is, what was my question? I had one. Oh, is this going to lead to the rise of the TI teams, where we have certain teams who, do really well at TI, don't care at all for 9 months of the year, work really hard for 3 months, win TI, come top 5 in TI,
And then return to
maybe-
playing MOBAs.
yeah, and then go off
Or
playing
MOBAs,
MMOs and shooters.
I want
or
to
what have
speak
you.
in newbies' defense here. So
Okay.
every single team that's ever won a TI has slumped a couple months after that TI. Every single one. It
Yeah.
happened after TI 1, after TI 2, after TI 3. Now, you might want to hate on newbie because they kind of got ahead of their slump and just decided to not care that much.
Yeah,
Just be
this
like,
wasn't
"Go
a
do other-"
slump. That was like watching a train
Yeah,
crash.
this was a
wait.
conscious decision.
But how
Let's
much do you
quantify the
blame them
slump,
when?
though.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So their slump is maybe you want to quantify it. You're gonna say it's bigger. My point is there's certainly some effect. There's some effect which is repeating itself when a team wins TI. Something happens to them. They burn out a few months after that, and I mean, there's different approaches to dealing with that. It's quite possible there's a conversation happening at newbies game house where the manager suggested or someone suggested, look, TI teams burn out a while after winning TI. Maybe we should just take a break. Let's do other things. And my second defense, which is not directly related to this of newbie, is that I'm not sure if Valve would have invited them just on the basis of winning. Right? I'm not saying they invited them on the basis of results, because I agree with Ben. I mean, you can't argue the results. The results just totally sucked. What I will say in their defense is they're not going to be terrible at TI. They aren't. They're this is a team that very reasonably could place top 8. They're going to be competitive at this tournament. Anyone who's written off newbie and thinks this is a trash team, they're lucky they got invited, you're in for a surprise. They're going to beat teams at the International 5. And I think if Valve thought they would come to TI 5 and just lose every game like they basically did at DAC, then I think they probably wouldn't have invited them. But yeah, I think this is a team that could do well.
Really?
I think
Why do you think they're going to beat out these? What do you think is good about newbie? What do you think they've
Okay.
got?
So you talk about how they're basically just the old Tong Fu. Well, the old Tong Fu did really well at a bunch of TIs, right? They placed top 8, I think 2 years in a row. I think they placed top 4 the TI 3. And they were knocked out of TI by Navi's hooking to fountain strategy. Right?
Yeah.
That's legit though. That was
So-
a joke.
So those guys playing before Zhao, it's finally made them in their final form and took them to first place at
Wait,
TI 4.
wait, wait. Okay, wait. Let's just be clear here, just for clarity. That Navi Tong Fu game where Navi did the Pudge hook, right?
Yeah.
That was in the winners bracket, so they didn't get knocked out based on that. They just got knocked down based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's.
They got,
I mean, it's
beaten
like
by they got beaten by Mushy and Orange.
yeah, but you. I mean, you
Yeah.
watch that tournament, you watch that match, you see them being knocked out in that way. It's
Yeah,
very difficult
that's
to
the
not
crunch
explain
thing.
it. Exactly. It's like. My point more was that before that Navi match, that was a team that looked like they were on their way to possibly winning the tournament, right? And that was long before Zhao Yates ever played with them. So this core of Mu and Banana and Sansheng, sure, we can talk about the fact that Hao was always there, that's true, and he's gone. But they've done well before Zhao Yates, and they can do well without Zhao Yates. And
That's
I mean,
true, but
again,
also
Rabbit as well. If you,
remember
if you
just
look
remember
at
that
last
last
year-
year at TI, they were like physically punching each other, like they had to be restrained.
Yeah, and there's two versions of the story, and one version says that Zhao Yates is the one who like gave them a team talk and made them do better in the knockouts, and another version of the
Yeah.
story says that Zhao Yates is the reason they were punching each other in the first place, because again, these guys were playing together for years before that, and they didn't have those issues. So, I mean, you can imagine that these big leadership, figures like Zhao Yates are quite polarizing. It's not that strange to imagine that. I think that I mean I totally agree. I don't have any like data points or like here's a tournament where they played and they really impressed me to say Newbie is actually still a strong team, but I think they are. I think I don't have a good reason to expect them unless they like after being invited to TI kept just playing MOBAs and haven't focused on training for the international, but
Yeah.
that doesn't seem likely to me. And I think there's a whole lot of teams fighting for sort of ending like 7 through 12th kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty set on who I'd put in my top 6 and like the bottom 4. I totally put Newbie in that category of like 7 through 12. I think they're there, and whether it's like closer to 5th, 6th, or closer to 13th, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, one team that we're going to kind of shift gears here and move along. One team that I don't think anybody in the world is putting lower than 6th, except for Joel, who puts them 6th in every one of his power ranks. Joel is the editor for Liquid Dota.
Is he the one who
Evil-
put them at 6 for the summit, and he was
Yeah,
the only
yes.
person in the power ranks? Okay.
He did.
Yeah.
It's like it's
He's the
okay.
only
We got a group decision on it this time. We didn't
Yeah,
just
they
let John
were-
Must do it.
It was an average. Obviously EG, Evil Geniuses. The kind of American hope of
Powerhouse.
the powerhouse of Fears, Sumail, Universe, Owie 2000, and the ever salty PPD. And each one of these players, to me, brings something very unique and very essential to this team that is going to make them this powerhouse and this force to be reckoned with, whether it be PPD's brain and his drafting, captaining ability, or Fear's experience, or Sumail's, kind of that young hotshot type, Owie being Owie, and Universe's
being Owie.
love for Owie. Yeah. I mean, besides Secret, is there a team that could touch EG besides Secret? And
What?
yeah,
Empire,
let's start
maybe?
there.
Empire touched them all over the place at MLG.
This is a joke that only South Africans will get, but they touched them on their studio. Like, they were in their home ground. They like, they came up to them and they put their arm around them and they led them down the path and they said, okay, well, you're gonna walk and we're gonna drive to the next event. Like they would. It was dominating. It was a crush. It was a crush.
Oh, you South Africans
This
are
is
so weird.
this is such a podcast of rich cultural exchange. I love it.
It really is.
Do you want to know something cool about? I mean, this is like a massive tangent. I'll take 30 seconds, but something cool about South Africans. We were talking about Virtus Pro earlier. Lil, who plays support for them, he used to play with South Africans. Like nobody knows that. But
He was on your
He's-
team.
he-
He was
Wow.
on your team.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
Lil
you had
needs to know that.
you had your one shot to tell me something cool about South Africans, and that's what you came up with.
That's what
he used to
got.
stand in for my Dota team before he became famous and joined Virtus Pro. I'm serious. I mean, and then he went and played 100 games of Skywrath and 100 games of Visage, and people were like, "Wow, this guy's a god," and he joined Virtus Pro and never looked back.
Well,
But anyway, back to EG.
Nobody
I mean,
wants to look back to South Africa.
okay, so I think that there's this balance. I think there's this balance here, right? Where PPD is a really, really robust and adaptable drafter. And you know, like, everybody's seen the storyline of him, like, they bomb out, they won, and then he, like, adapts to the drafting style. I feel like PPD is one of the, like, follows the meta kind of drafters. Like, he works out what the meta is, and then his
He deviates slightly from it just to beat it, just to beat it, just to beat it.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that the good thing with PPD's drafting is he's very good at um, getting a draft together that allows his team to kind of flourish, right? And I think this in particular applies to Sumail. And I think there's two big questions with Sumail in this tournament, and everybody's kind of looking at him, and which is, you know, I guess it's going to happen, but, you know, what you're going to do. I think one is that he's so young, right? So when it comes to, I mean, he's played on lands before, but he hasn't played Key Arena. And when it comes to really down to the crunch at Key Arena, is he going to crack under the pressure? But not only that...
No, he's got this. He's fine. He's Gucci.
Okay, but the second question, and I think this is the more important question, is also when it comes under, like, down to the pressure, does his team trust him to perform?
Well, so at ESL 1, after EG beat Vici Gaming, like that thrashing they gave them, I'm pretty sure Charlie said that Sumail was playing better than he did at DAC. And it's the first time we heard anything like that from EG. And it's the question people, like at DAC, he was like this breakout player. People were like, wow, Sumail's just incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like all the way up to ESL 1, there was never a time where anyone, like any analyst or coach or player in EG or whoever, like made a similar comparison. But at ESL 1, it happened. And I think if you watch that series, it's undeniable. That was Sumail at the same level, if not a higher level, than he was at DAC. Of course, they went on to lose the Secret in the finals, and Sumail did underperform a bit in those finals. So I don't know. Do you take the performance against Vici where he looked like an absolute god, or the performance against Secret where he was outclassed? Which of those Sumails is going to rock up at TI? Maybe it'll be a different one in different matches.
Well, I think that maybe in the case in ESL 1, more towards as the, like, and like more lately, I think that PPD's doing a lot less drafting around Sumail. I think when they first started playing with him, I remember there being some comments that him or Fear made about them. They were just drafting what Sumail was comfortable with, because, like, he was new to the team, and they were trying to, like, give him time to adjust before, and then they were going to, like, move it back to what their more normal style of drafting is, where they don't draft around him so much. So maybe now that they're drafting less around Sumail, it's going to put a bit more pressure on him.
Yeah, but the thing is, remember that they're able to do that because they're so versatile. Like, PPD has played in various stretches a huge amount of supports, even though he's got a very distinctive type of supports. He's played so many different types. Aoi also, because he's played carry, because he's played support, he can play almost everything, but, you know, like, maybe save a couple of the less greedy supports. And you have Fear, who has also played everything. He's played mid, he's played safe lane, he's played support, he can do everything. He's got a huge hero pool. So it makes sense to draft around your least versatile player first. And at the moment, that is offlane. That's Universe, because he's an offlane player, and some heroes just can't offlane.
Yep.
And Sumail, because he's the newest. Like, rather get him confidence on heroes, make him so comfortable in a hero like Storm Spirit that other teams have to develop strats against, and then start shifting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think if you're EG right now, you kind of, particularly going back to the ESL 1 question, you kind of have to hope for the best, prepare for the worst, in that, you know, they hope the versus Vici, Sumail shows up, but I get the feeling that they're training for the versus Secret Sumail is going to show up. I mean, he's sitting right next to Fear every single day, the most experienced pro Dota player. You know, we have plenty of jokes about old man Fear, and, you know, just that calm, cool, collected presence that is Clinton Loomis. I mean, that's got to start rubbing off on Sumail.
But how much direction do you think he's giving? Because Fear seems to be fairly quiet in comparison to, like, maybe Aoi, who likes to talk, and PPD, who likes to talk. So maybe he's getting a lot of his support as a developing player from PPD or Owie.
That's
Not a bad
so
thing either.
I actually want to touch on that because I think this is the major strength of EG as a team is their intelligence. I think overall, like, they're the smartest team there is. I genuinely think they are, and it comes down mostly to PPD and Owie, who are just like absolute geniuses in terms of theory crafting the game, strategizing, tactics, figuring out what to do, how to adjust the draft. The downside of that, I think, is that games where they get outthought, and recently it happens a lot when they're up against. I like to think it's S4, it's Kuro who are involved in it for Secret, maybe obviously Puppy as well. Those games, I don't think they have a good shot of winning. I think that if you take away the fact that they're so smart, just on mechanics, EG don't match that well against a lot of the best teams. So it's kind of a two-way street. I think they're the most likely team in the whole international to consistently outthink their opponents. But if they get into a situation where they haven't outthought their opponents, I think the odds are stacked against them in a lot of matches, actually.
And I guess there's a lot of that Western fanboyism, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
They get blown. I don't think they get blown out of proportion, but you can definitely see like the bleed blue kind of mentality.
USA.
And how is that?
That's-
How is that going to affect them at the international as well? Like, clearly they're going to be the crowd favorites, like, just purely by numbers. Like, is that amount of support going to affect their results?
Oh, I don't.
A lot of pressure.
I think there's no way it doesn't hurt them. I mean, there's no way it hurts them at all. It's gonna obviously help them, and the only way is if somehow Sumail cracks under the pressure. But I don't see that happening.
I mean, like, I'm gonna come out and say, like, I actually don't think he will. I think that he'll perform quite well, but I think that I just thought I'd bring it up as a talking point because I think it's one of the biggest contentious things that people talk about when they talk about EG.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's
Their
a good
Twitter
thing to think
manager,
about.
their Twitter guy is also good. Their Twitter guy is also good.
Their Twitter guy's not Charlie?
No, it's a good guy. Yeah, it's not Charlie. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
it's
we're
a
gonna,
William guy.
Yeah.
He's
So
a great.
Dash, you got time for one more?
To be honest, I think I have to go to work.
Okay, so on that note, this wraps up Liquid Dota podcast number 5, the first of a couple TI previews. As I mentioned, Knoxville and Scant will probably both be joining us again, as will Dash. Omni will be rejoining us at some point. And a sneak peek is we will have LD on the podcast. Still working out a couple of the last second details for that. But he will be joining us on one of these pre-TI Dota podcasts. Schedule upcoming is we're going to try and get at least 2 more out, one covering the rest of the 14 qualified or invited teams. And then we're going to do a special play-in qualifier type of podcast where we go in depth on the 4 teams, who's going to be who, and kind of give everybody an in-depth look into the joyous event that is the play-ins. So if everybody wants to we'll go around the horn, start with Dash, then Scant, and then finally Knoxville. Any shout-outs, Twitter plugs, or anything we need to know, please let us know. So, Dash, you go first.
Sure. Shout out to Oren. He's running a really, really cool tournament that's going on in Singapore after TI. But yeah, if you head over to Liquid Dota, you'll see some cool announcements on that. So I'm actually really excited for that already. And like TI hasn't even finished yet. But yeah, if you wanna find me, my Twitter and Twitch are both Gaijin Dash, which is GAIJIN. I know it's difficult, but I'm sure you'll manage. But yeah, it was fun.
All right, and Scant.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. My Twitter is @Scansor, and I guess shout out to anyone I've worked with.
You should spell that, by the way.
SCANTZOR. Scant like underwear, I guess, with the ZOR. And yeah, shout out to anyone I've worked with or worked for, except the people I hate. You know who you are. And shout out to Ben's probably gonna do this too, but shout out to Martin Descartes from Dat Dota, without whom a lot of our industry just wouldn't exist. People often don't realize like the Dap Dota site. There's actually a person behind it who, for his own reasons, decides to stay behind the scenes. But like so many of us and so much of the scene kind of depends on it at this point. So shout out to him. He's a legend.
All right, and finally, Knoxville.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone. I am Knoxville, Noxvilleza, on Twitter, because some annoying Australian woman has got at Knoxville, and her only tweet was, gee, this Twitter stuff, I don't like it, I don't think I'm going to use this, and she hasn't tweeted since, that was 5 years ago. So, yeah, at Knoxvilleza. Thanks to Decord and also to Scant and to all the other stats guys who I work with, Nahaz, that Phage guy, K-Poptosis, all the standard deviants except Carts, and
Modpacks.
Oh yeah, no, well Modpacks obviously. I mean he's right
He's
in
the
there.
best,
He's in the mix. I love working with Modpacks. Okay, that's me.
All right, yeah, and I am Aegis. You can find me on Twitter at RobIsFunny. I might put out an article for Liquid Dota every once in a while, but I'm better at the talking, worse at the writing. So this has been Liquid Dota Podcast number 5. Want to thank everybody for listening. Like I said, there should be at least 2 more before the International, and everybody get on the hype train for TI. I should probably get some outro music for this. But yeah, have a nice day.